Turn it up. Big wheels keep on turning.
Okay, section 6.4 is on mortgages. Pretty important section, very applicable to real life. What's a mortgage? A mortgage is just a special type of loan that's specifically used to purchase real estate. So you want to buy a house, for example, or a farm, or a condo, or whatever. And payments are made at the end of the month. Getting into the nitty-gritty details, get those out of the way first. Payments are made at the end of the month, and interest is calculated at most semi-annually. That's by Canadian law. It can be annually, it can be semi-annually, but it couldn't be any more often than that. Okay, so with a mortgage, with loans, there's always collateral, something that you have at stake. So if you don't pay off the loan, then you default that item or that amount of money, right? Well, the collateral in this case is the real estate or the property itself. So in other words, if the mortgagor, that's the person who's taking out the mortgage, like the homeowner, if the mortgagor fails to pay back the loan, they lose the property to the mortgagee. That would be the lending institution or the bank. So, pretty simple, pretty brutal, but if you fail to pay your mortgage, eventually the bank or whoever is going to take ownership of your house. You don't have your house anymore. So, pretty serious consequence there. Okay, amortize. Strange word, amortize. Amortize is a verb. It means to repay a mortgage in equal periodic payments over a period of time. In other words, it's just the regular mortgage payments you make to pay back your mortgage, the loan for your house. Amortization period. Amortization period refers to the time it would take to completely pay off the mortgage if the interest remained constant. It's usually 15, 20, or 25 years. So when you take out a mortgage, you work with the bank or wherever, and you come up with an amortization period, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to have this mortgage, this house paid off in 20 years or in 25 years or whatever. So you make this agreement. But there's also something called the term. It used to be that these were exactly the same things. Well, if I take out the mortgage for 20 years, if the amortization period is 20 years, then that's the term. But that's not always the case anymore. In fact, it's seldomly the case. What term is the length of time that the mortgagor agrees to make the mortgage payments to the lending institution. So basically, let's say that the amortization period is 20 years, but your term is only 5 years. What you're saying is, yeah, I'm going to get the house paid off in 20 years, but we're only going to make an agreement about how much I'm paying, like the interest rate and how often I pay. I'm going to do that for 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, we'll renegotiate. Eventually, I'm going to get it all paid off in the 20 years, but for now, we're just going to take it 5 years at a time. That's basically what the difference is amortization period and term. So at the end of the term, a new mortgage agreement is negotiated, and a new amortization period may result with a different lending rate. So it's a risk. Maybe right now you have 4% is your interest rate that you're paying on your loan for your house, on your mortgage, and even though your amortization period is 20 years, you say that the term's only 5 years. 5 years comes up, and now you look, and now the interest rates are at 4.2. Whoops. Not good. You should, you lost. But who knows? Maybe in 5 years it's down to 3.7. Great, you're a win. So it's a bit of a gamble, but oftentimes people's term is shorter than their amortization period. I just can't say that word. Okay, so we actually only have one question to answer here, but it's a long question with all sorts of parts to it. So Jose is negotiating with his bank for a mortgage on a house. He has been told that he needs to make a 10% down payment on the purchase price of $225,000. Then the bank will offer a 5-year mortgage for the balance at 3.75% compounded semi-annually. Very, very common, semi-annually. Remember, with monthly mortgage payments, that's very, very common as well, the monthly mortgage payments. The mortgage is amortized over 20 years. All right, so let's write down some of the things that are we need to know here. What's the amortization period? Well, it says right here, the mortgage is amortized over 20 years. So the amortization period, 20 years. What's the term? The term is 5 years. So it's just like the example I gave up above, unfortunately. We're saying we're going to get the whole house paid off in 20 years, but we're just going to enter into a 5-year agreement when it comes to the actual terms right now. What's the amount of the down payment? Well, we need to make a 10% down payment. So what we need to know is what's 10% of the purchase price, $225,000. How do we do that? To get 10% of something, you multiply by 0.10. So 0.10 times 225,000. And if you multiply that, decimal pops over one spot. You can, of course, you can use a calculator if you want. You're going to get $22,500. That's the amount of the down payment. Okay, so you put down the $22,500 and now you've got a house, but of course you still have a lot of it to be paid. How much do you still need to finance? Well, it was $225,000, but you paid $22,500, so that's taken care of. The amount that's left to pay, if you subtract those, is $202,500. So that's what we're going to be working with from here on out. Okay, moving on. Determine the monthly mortgage payment. So how much you're going to have to pay every month. Okay, N is the number of payments. So it's kind of tricky here. Okay, do I look at the term or do I look at the amortization period? You look at the amortization period. You're going to assume that you're going to keep that same amount for the whole length of the mortgage. It might not be true. Maybe at the end of the term you change it, but let's just assume for now that it stays the same. That's the way you attack this. So how long did we say the amortization period was? It was 20 years. So the N, the number of payments there's going to be, is 20 years times 12 months. What's the percentage? It was 3.75. You can check that out for yourself. What's the present value? Well, that's how much we need to take the loan out for, the mortgage itself, and that was the answer to the last question, wasn't it? That 202,500. So 202,500. Next question is the payment. This is the thing we don't know, so we're going to leave that blank, or you can just have anything you want in there on your TMV solver, but I'll just put it as blank. Future value. So what we're asking is how much payment do you need to have so that you end up after this length of time with a value of 0. So we want to know when there's nothing left. Payments per year. Well, we're going to pay monthly, so that's 12. And how many times does it compound per year? Semi-annually. Remember, we said that was the most common, and this question, that's what it said as well. So this is going to be a 2. So now we're going to pull out our TI-83 or whatever, and we're going to figure out what the answer is. Okay, here we go. So remember how to get to here. We go second, finance. Here we go, number 1. And I'll start using the calculator. So I can actually put 20 times 12 in here if I don't know what 20 times 12 is. Or 12 times 20. I don't know why I did it that way. There you go, and once I move down you'll see that it actually calculates there. Whoa, 240. Percentage 3.75. The present value is 202,500. Payment, we'll just leave it 0. That's what we're going to figure out. Future value 0. Payments per year is 12, and the compounding per year is twice. Always end when we work with mortgages. Back up to payment because we want to know how much the payment is. So then you go alpha, enter, that solves it for us, and you end up with $1,197.55 if I round. Notice it's negative, so let's write that down. We'll leave off the negative because probably easier to understand when you're just looking for the answer here. There's the amount you're going to pay every single month for your mortgage. Pretty hefty, right? But that's very common sort of amount, especially you're living in Vancouver. It's not a bad amount at all, unfortunately. What would the house really cost if the term was continuously renegotiated to be the same throughout the amortization period? So what they're saying is, let's say for the whole 20-year mortgage, you just kept the same payment the whole time. Well, then basically what you do is you have to figure out how many months there are. Well, 20 years times 12 months, and every month you're paying this amount, $1,197.55. If you multiply those three things together, you'll get the answer, which is $287,055. $2,412. So that's how much you're paying for the mortgage. But if we want to know how much the house really costs, what else do I have to add on to that? The down payment. That was also part of the cost of the house, right? So I'm going to add on to that the $22,500. You're clear where I'm getting that number from? It's back here, down here, right there, $22,500 right there. So we add those together and we get $309,912. There's what we actually paid for the house. How much is the interest? Well, remember the definition of interest? It's the extra amount you paid above the purchase price when you take out a loan. So how much was the actual cost of the house? It was $225,000. So we ended up paying $309,912. The actual purchase price was $225,000. The amount of interest we paid was $84,912, almost $85,000 in interest. Oh, interest, it really does mount up. Okay, now these last two questions here that we answered, this was assuming that you did the same payment for the whole amortization period. But now let's imagine that that didn't happen. Let's say that after that initial 5-year term, then the mortgage is up for renewal. And first of all, let's see at the end of that 5 years, how much do you still have to pay? So basically, you're paying this $1,197.55, and we want to know at the end of the 5 years, how much do you still have to pay? So let's go through N. So N, it's not the whole amount. We've only paid for 5 years. So it's going to be 5 times 12. 5 years, 12 months. What's the percentage? Same as up here, 3.75. That's what percentage we're getting, paying every month. The previous value, that's what we started with again. So that was $202,500. The payment, well, we know the payment now. The payment was this amount right here, $1,197.55. But remember, it's actually negative. Negative $1,197.55. Future value, that's what we're figuring out this time, right? We're not paying the whole thing off. We want to know how much is left after the 5 years. Payments per year, still 12. Compounding per year, still 2. And it's still going to be the end. So we don't have too many to change in the actual TI-83 here. I have to change N to 5 times 12, or I know what that is, 60. And I need to change, is that it? I think that's it. Okay, so we go down to future value because that's what we're trying to calculate. Alpha, enter, and we get the amount. It is basically $165,000. $165,000.16. There's our answer. That's how much money we still have to pay after 10 years. Sorry, after 5 years. So 5 years has come up. The term's over. We still owe this much on the house. And now you sit down with your bank or whoever and you renegotiate, and it turns out that now you get a better deal. Rather than getting 3.75% interest rate, you got it down to 3.35%. This is good news. So you're going to take on another 5 years. All right, it's not going till the end of the mortgage necessarily. It's just another 5 years. So this is the second 5 years of your mortgage. But this time, instead of being at 3.75, it's going to be at 3.35%. Great. And what we want to know is what's the monthly payment, not payment-y, I don't know what that's about, payment, that for the renegotiated mortgage. And we're going to assume it still has that same amortization period of 20 years. It could change, right? Maybe when you renegotiate, you decide, okay, I actually want it at 3.35%, but I want it now to be at 25 years. No, we're going to pretend that it's still going to amortize after that initial 20 years. So in other words, if it's going to amortize after that initial 20 and 5 years are gone, how much is N going to be? There's only 15 years left. 15, and since it's monthly, each payment is monthly, it's 15 times 12. The interest rate, it's only 3.35 now. The payment, oh no, sorry, the previous value, well, that's the amount that you still have left. So that's your $165,000.16. The payment, that's what we're figuring out. What's our new payment? Should be lower, you'd think, if the interest rate's gone down. The future value, well, again, we want to take a look at what would we have to pay in order to get this to go all the way down to 0 to pay the whole thing off. Payments per year, still going to pay monthly. Compounding per year, it's still semi-annually, so twice, and it's always going to be at the end. Okay, back to the TI-83. So up to the top, 15 times 12, you can do it in your head or with a different calculator, but I'll just type it in there. 15 times 12 tells me it's 180. Great. Interest rate goes down to 3.35. The present value is 165,016 cents. The payment is what we're going to figure out. You can leave whatever you want in there. I'll just put it to 0. Future value we want to be 0. 12 to n. That's it. We want the payment. Go up to payment. Alpha. Enter. We've got our answer. Our new payment is 1165.58. 1165.58. And let's compare that to our previous payment, which was up here, was 1197.55. Okay, so it pays to look for lower interest rates, of course, when you have big amounts like a mortgage. Okay, hope that makes sense. Take care.
Well, I understand.